Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Alexis Batulis with Columbus, and today we have a special presentation for you on the 8 benefits of using a cloud ERP system for life sciences. We started the call by putting everyone on mute, so if you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the question box on the upper right-hand side of the screen to ask any questions that may come up. At the end, we'll have time for a Q&A with our presenter. Finally, we are recording the session and we'll be sending a link of the recording to all attendees within an hour after this webcast. Now I'm excited to introduce your presenter today, Stefan Sawecki. Stefan is an enterprise account executive here at Columbus. He partners with clients in the Eastern United States to help drive meaningful and practical digital transformation. His background includes roles focused on manufacturing and distribution, as well as a stint leading an IT organization. So without further ado, Stefan, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Alexis, and excited to be with everyone here today as we talk about, modern cloud ERP, specifically as it applies to life sciences. And one of the pleasures of my job is that I get to spend a lot of time with our clients up and down the East Coast, and a lot of folks in the life sciences space, whether that's both pharma or medical device. And I've really been able to see firsthand how rolling out cloud ERP, specifically Microsoft Dynamics 365, has really just positively impacted their organizations in a lot of meaningful ways. And that's what we're going to try to share some of those best practices and lessons with you here today. So in terms of our agenda for the session, we'll start with just a high level on cloud ERP in general, and specifically how that ties into some of the needs around life science businesses. We'll hit compliance right up front, because that's a major question that comes up when we're having conversations with folks in the space. Is how do I stay compliant? How do I make sure that I keep my FDA auditors happy? So we'll spend some time talking about that. And then we'll take really 2 different lenses, so from a pre-commercialization and then a post-commercialization lens, as to how the solution can ultimately roll out and support those use cases that our clients have. And then we'll drill into some specific tactical elements that we're bringing to market with Microsoft D365 that do support and lend themselves very well to the life science space. And then we'll wrap up with Q&A and a summary. So as we get into it, life sciences businesses really can benefit from modern cloud ERP. And I think there are really a number of different pillars or drivers for that, specifically in contrast to some of the legacy ERP platforms that are out there. And I think, if I had to boil it down, it's about adaptability and the ability to scale and manage complexity while still staying compliant. And I think, as we go through this session today, those are really some themes to think about. And if COVID-19 has proven anything to us, it's that we need to remain incredibly agile, incredibly flexible, and be able to adapt to things in a near real-time capacity. And I think cloud ERP, better than any other alternative, can ultimately help provide that level of flexibility and tailorability to you in the life science space. So as you move through a life cycle and your business requirements change, ultimately, Microsoft D365 can support a lot of those changes because it's designed to grow with you. So I think from that standpoint, we've got you covered. From a regulation perspective, and we'll certainly spend a bit more time talking about that in a moment, but Microsoft, as a provider and a solution deliverer, for lack of a better term, really has invested very heavily in the back-end infrastructure to allow you to meet the various ISO, FDA regulations that you need to have to stay compliant. And the cost savings that ultimately is attributed with that is really unmatched. You're really able to leverage and tap into a level of security and regulatory compliance that to provide and scale in your own environment or even in a hosted environment is really not equivalent. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. The concept of scalability. So cloud in general really is ingrained with scalability. Why? Because ultimately you're paying for what you need and paying as you go. So as your business grows, as you're adding users, you're then being tasked with paying for that additional access. But as your business is getting off the ground, and we have a case with a client of ours in Indiana that is a startup that we're recently rolling out, where they've got 25 people that are initially accessing the system, and it's certainly something from that standpoint that allows you to very easily scale, add users in a matter of hours, not days or weeks or months, and really get people the access they need to the system. And then ultimately, from a process efficiency perspective, right? How do we maintain our compliance, as we talked about from a regulation perspective? But we're in business to deliver our devices or to deliver our pharmaceuticals. So ultimately, we need to meet the demands and the needs of our customers. How do we do that as efficiently and effectively as possible? And there are really myriad ways that D365 supports that out of the box, from integrated quote to cash or procure to pay processes on through to even more advanced functionality like machine learning driven demand forecasting. There's really a lot of pieces that are available to our clients out of the box that help them hit those efficiency targets. And as you see here at the bottom, the more paper, and I might even modify that to say the more Excel that you have in your business process today, the more stark that contrast will be as you move to a solution like Microsoft Dynamics 365. Because the more you get out of operating in individual, siloed, very sort of narrow focused ways and plug into the broader cloud ecosystem, the more you will see the benefits across those business requirements and the efficiency of those processes. So certainly something to keep in mind as you build your future roadmap. I promised we would touch on compliance up front because ultimately it is absolutely mission critical, and it's one of those situations where it's kind of like insurance, right? If you don't do it or you don't have it, you really pay when you need it, right? So in the same vein, making sure and ensuring your compliance with the FDA is mission critical. And one of the comments or questions that we get a lot in the cloud world with Microsoft D365 is, as Microsoft is pushing updates, how do we stay compliant, right? In a validated environment, or in a in a heavily regulated environment. Well, there are a few aspects to that I think merit consideration. First and foremost, when Microsoft releases their updates, they are delivered typically in an opt-in fashion. So they're not necessarily required that you take them. They are just available for you. So that is the first piece of it. And then as a partner, Columbus, who specializes and focuses in this space, when we partner with a new client, we typically include them in our evergreen program. And what does that mean? Well, that means that we are constantly reviewing the roadmap and the additional functionality that Microsoft is delivering to the market. And we're going back to our clients with recommendations and potential opportunities for enhancement that they may want to take advantage of. And within that context, we're providing the ability to roll that out and manage that and maintain the overall compliance that you guys would need to actually function in that space. So that's something to be aware of. And certainly from a compliance perspective, we've talked about kind of the validation side of things, but also more specifically around security, quality control, audit trails. really who has access to what are my segregation of duties, all of those pieces to ensure that as an auditor would come into your business, you can really prove, yes, this is my scope across all of my users, this is who can see what, and ultimately, yes, we are in fact following the specific protocols that we outlined and validated ourselves to. So shifting gears a little bit, let's break down the D365 and cloud ERP discussion through sort of two lenses, and we'll start with businesses that are pre-commercialization. So at that phase of your development, typically what we're seeing is a strong focus, and not to say that this doesn't happen elsewhere, but a very, very particular focus around expense management, budgeting, forecasting, planning, and then ultimately project management. Because in many cases, this is a situation where we're perhaps in a trial situation with our product, or we're in development of our product, and ultimately we are looking to capture all of our costs, ensure that we are appropriately managing that relative to our budget and our projections, and then from there being able to scale that forward to say, okay, when, given our projections, given our timeline, given where we are in our development curve, when do we think that our revenue is going to track, right? And obviously you've got your approvals from the regulatory bodies, FDA and others that need to come into play, but you can really start to control and project very, very specifically to then be able to, both from an internal perspective as well as an external perspective, whether that's the market or different investor groups, be able to position exactly where you are at a given point in time. And that level of control and confidence is what can inspire additional investment, or really just the overall control and management of the business itself, so that our clients are able to really realize the full potential of the solutions that they're bringing to market. So, and we talked about project accounting and purchase recs and approvals, but also key punch out capabilities. We've been working with a client of ours down in Florida, and very, very impactful ability here to leverage that punch out capability to go out to, in their case, some of the major medical supply providers, so like the McKessons and Henry Scheins of the world, right? So being able to connect and create that broad network, that broad ecosystem, typically that is a very challenging ask in a legacy premise or even hosted ERP environment. But certainly Microsoft Dynamics has pushed to the forefront that connectivity, that ecosystem, that network of connected businesses to help our clients realize the full potential of where all of that can go. And then shifting gears towards a post-commercialization world, right? So now you're live, you're out in the marketplace. Now it's about scaling with control, right? So we need oversight, we need to maintain our compliance, being able to track whatever Sunshine Act compliance needs we have, being able to look at our spend from a client perspective, and again, that financial transparency. So both from an internal and an external stakeholder perspective, being able to give proper guidance, real-time access, and confidence that we've got all of the relevant data points captured, really is a fundamental change. And going back, a couple of pieces or slides here where we were talking about, the more paper-driven or the more Excel-driven a business is, the more stark these contrasts can be. This is one of those areas where it's absolutely critical that we have complete control, complete visibility, as quickly and with as much agility as we possibly can. So as we go commercial, let's talk about really where Microsoft D365 and Cloud ERP can offer the most impact. And I think first and foremost, traceability. Why? I think there are really a number of different areas, right? I think we all get the concept of why traceability is critical. We need to be able to know where our products went, who got them, when they got them, and everything that went into the construction or the formulation of a particular item that we would sell, right? But it's the ability to very quickly, very systematically conduct a recall if needed, or even just from a quality perspective. Let's say we capture something in our process towards the end of our supply chain or towards the end of our production, right? We have a finished good inspection process. Let's say we isolate something there that's going to affect several batches or several inbound shipments from a vendor, right? Let's say that we've done some testing and been able to isolate that. Well, the ability to very quickly punch into our system, pull up everywhere throughout our network and our supply chain. And again, keeping in mind, this may impact, if you're post-commercialization here, multiple locations, could be global, could be all over the place. The ability to very quickly see that information, distill it, and then follow your corrective and preventive plan, which can be captured and managed within D365, is really, really powerful. And then at that point, being able to act quickly saves you time, saves you money, obviously saves patient health as well, to prevent items that should not be leaving our dock from doing so in this particular instance. But again, the opportunity to know at a point in time exactly where a particular lot or a particular serial number, whatever the case may be, is within our system, absolutely critical. Cannot overstate how important that piece is. And that's when you think about Microsoft Dynamics 365 as an ERP system, and then kind of expand it to include the Power Platform, which we've spent a lot of time at Columbus, both rolling out to our life science customers as well as showing a lot of our clients really where that comes in. The ability to create very quick, very defined role-based apps or function-based apps to give you just that narrow sliver of the world. Really, really impactful and really highlights and expedites this traceability concept. So in conjunction with traceability, right, we use the example of quality there, but not all ERP systems have ingrained or embedded quality within them. And even the ones that do, it's almost like a quality in name only, where maybe you can list something as a particular status, or maybe you can prevent something from shipping or not, but they're not going to have the real full breadth and depth around things like quarantine management, CAPA, as we touched on as well, the ability to capture and then even do predictive quality going forward, right? I mean, that's really where we're seeing things going. The ERP system is a great hub when it's properly constructed and properly deployed to capture tons of information. But where we're going as a partner and where Microsoft is going as a provider ultimately is, how do I see around that corner? And one of the things that we've done is develop predictive quality, leveraging Azure machine learning built in and baked on top of Microsoft D365, so that we're helping our clients analyze trends of what factors may contribute to a higher defect rate or a higher out of compliance rate, right? And then start to adjust proactively to save costs, to ensure that we're optimizing our production and that we're really managing our supply chain to the fullest. And those are the types of things that in a cloud ERP you've got an opportunity to do, whereas in a legacy system that really would just be completely out of the question. So also things around expiration dates. So proactively managing your expiration dates, rotating your inventory, and then ultimately releasing inventory for consumption, right? So your quality team would have the ability to have access to all of that data, and then, as I mentioned just a moment ago, consume and interact with that information in the correct formats. As you can see in our picture here, our friend has a mobile device where, perhaps he's pulling up a Power App, he's able to input test results or actually release batches for consumption, or he's also able to initiate the nonconformance process, right? And he's recording some results that's triggering a nonconformance. Now he's into the next step of your quality program. So again, the ability to have all of that natively within the system and then supplemented with tools that provide an appropriate level of access wherever you are throughout your supply chain is really an impactful and meaningful outcome that Microsoft has brought that helps drive the success of the cloud ERP platform for our clients. Security and data maintenance. So obviously security, something that we've spent a lot of time talking about already, but the ability to prove from an audit perspective that your individual users have the right level of access throughout your system and that you are in compliance from that perspective. But similarly, take a little bit of a different spin on this, or around the point on data integrity here. Data that's out of date, whether it's yesterday's data, last week's data, that can, managing your business on data that isn't real time and accurately reflecting what's happening right now is kind of like driving your car from the rearview mirror. Like it is just a limiting factor, and in a competitive marketplace and in a marketplace that demands agility, what we're seeing is our clients needing the ability to trust that data without having to put a lot of work and struggle into keeping it up to date. And I feel like that's something that, better than any other provider in the marketplace, Microsoft has done to make sure that data is available, that it's connected, and that you can get at it wherever you need it to consume it and drive actionable insight to make decisions. Big one in the life sciences space is going to come into both fulfillment and inventory management. Most of our clients have models where there is some external third party, whether that be a 3PL from a warehousing perspective, or there's a part of their manufacturing process that is coming in or is externally managed. And the ability to look at your network holistically and still account for those 3PLs, their lead times, their restrictions, and keep your overall GMP status is mission critical, right? And Microsoft, being a modern ERP that's been architected and delivered here, in the last handful of years, Microsoft gets that. They understand that that is a fundamental reality, and it allows for you to accommodate these practices natively in the workflow. So it does not become a gymnastics exercise when you have a third party that is going to test a specific part of your medical device, or you're going to have a specific process that, well, yes, sometimes we do it internally, sometimes we do it externally. We need to optimize that process. That lives within your ERP system, right? And then ultimately, if you think about all of the stakeholders that rely on the inventory and fulfillment of your products, and consequently the inputs that go into creating an intelligent plan around inventory and fulfillment and production, having an end-to-end system that accounts for all of that, that can help you make the best decisions around those data points. So whether that's things like sales forecasting, MRP, and the ability to have real-time inventory and understand at a specific point in time without a lot of gyrations where I'm at from a particular inventory position. That's really a characteristic of Cloud ERP and Microsoft D365 that, again, legacy systems really struggle with incorporating all of those data elements in a meaningful way and, frankly, in a timely way that allows that data to have the proper impact and inform the decisions that are being made at a daily and frankly hourly or minute by minute basis in a lot of cases. CRM, let's not discount the importance of good, clean data and understanding around our relationships with our clients, right? So being able to communicate with them effectively across all different mediums and capture that information in a controlled and scalable way, mission critical. And then similarly, being able to translate an intelligent and guided sales process and funnel that information down at whatever level of granularity the rest of the business needs to consume that information is really impactful as well. And being able to start with the quote unquote front end of the process and have it seamlessly flow all the way throughout, having eyes and judgment applied to it by your team, ultimately simplifies that process and lets the team spend more time really evaluating, thinking critically, and projecting, as opposed to trying to go to 10 different sales reps and isolate their forecast and really, distill it out of the back of the napkin, scratch math, so to speak. E-commerce, and when we talk about e-commerce, it's so much more than just a website in the buy online sort of sense. More and more, this has become a way for your clients to interact with you, and it becomes a true extension of your brand. And the more consistent, the more informative, and the easier we make that process, the better it is both for you as well as your clients, right? So the ability to have that sort of connected commerce experience is only growing in importance and impact. And again, I think Microsoft has really been on the forefront of this for a long time, actually, including things like portals within the licensing for the various suites of ERP that they provide. But even taking that to the next step, where there's really truly full-fledged e-com, websites, and the ability to plug into things like EDI and all of those additional sort of extensions and connections that our clients or your clients are placing those demands on you, and then being able to funnel all of that into a singular point so your team can have an up-to-date, real-time view of everything that's happening and all the requests that are being made to then respond to them appropriately, right? So you've got all of that, and then being able to do so within the context of compliance, right? So product restrictions. Who can buy this product? To which of their locations can we ship it? Where are they approved to receive it? If you've got folks that have, DEA regulation around their product and things like that, there's a ton that goes into being able to say, yes, we can receive it, no, we can't. Where are we in that process? And having your e-com, having your front end tied directly into the ERP streamlines that process and ensures you stay compliant, and takes the guesswork out of having an external sort of online catalog where maybe you have to go in and update that item master manually, right? Having a single item master that stems from your ERP and then propagates up through to the remainder of the places it can be consumed, tremendously impactful for streamlining compliance and things like that. Revenue recognition. I mean, the only constant is change, right? As the laws around revenue recognition continue to morph and continue to, frankly, just be challenging. But if you take a step back and you think about regulation in general like this, the very nature of a cloud ERP is that it is updated and it is maintained by Microsoft in this case to reflect those changes in as close to real time as they're honestly being ironed out and tested, right? I mean, that's sometimes the limiting factor there is not necessarily Microsoft. It's is this final, right, before we push it out to our clients? So there are a lot of variables that go into revenue recognition, right? So if your fulfillment's handled by a third party, you've got an extensive distribution network, you know, understanding where your inventory is, in what state it is, who owns it, all of those questions, we can simplify those. And because the supply chain portion of the ERP directly connects to the financial portion of the ERP, we're simplifying that move from really just shipping our products and having the back end rev rec and all of those pieces automated and handled for us, and at least brought to the point of judgment by our financial team in a very controlled and seamless way. So I think that really can't be understated. It's really a critical path and something that syncing those pieces without a lot of thought and effort can drive a lot of value throughout your supply chain. So, umbrella concept here around cloud ERP. We touched on a lot of different pieces, but talking about Microsoft Dynamics 365, right? It is a scalable platform based on a subscription model. What does that mean? You are paying for the access and the users that you need and nothing else. So unlike, buying sort of vast amounts of transactions or CPU space or whatever the case may be, the model is tied directly to the individuals. So you can scale as much as you need to, and frankly, the efficiency of the system ends up paying you back the longer and the more you roll it out, because the system will automate a lot relative to what you may be doing manually today, which can limit or refine the access levels of your users, thereby actually reducing the overall cost of the system, forgetting and putting aside for a second the business case and the ROI around the benefit streams that system can create. So a lot there, and that's certainly something that we can help model for you if this is something that's on your roadmap or even a consideration as you think about your go forward strategy, right? We spend a lot of time working closely with our clients, analyzing their models and saying, hey, given the number of locations, the complexity of your supply chain, the number of transactions, all of these inputs, you can expect to see this on the back end, and here's what that looks like from a user and a subscription pricing perspective. So cloud services typically cost less than on-premise, and I'll put in there the fully burdened premise cost. So once you go into things like disaster recovery, backup, any redundant connections, if you've got to do VPNs into your system, the security, antivirus, operating systems, all of those pieces that fundamentally contribute to a fully burdened cost, it is the typical iceberg scenario, right? Where, sure, buying an actual server box may cost X, but running a server and maintaining a server and ensuring my global team can connect to servers is a totally different cost equation. And then multiply that as you may go global or conduct business in different locations. And it just gets to become a quagmire that ultimately, one of the things that we've seen more and more is that our clients are getting themselves out of the hosting business, right? Our clients are focusing on their pharmaceutical products, their medical device products, the R&D associated with that, how do they get closer to their customer, and the value proposition of them hosting their own software just isn't there. They want to consume their software as a service rather than something that they have to maintain. And I think that is becoming more and more universal in a lot of aspects of life, even down to your cell phone, right? I mean, it's just the pricing models and the way things have changed. People are paying to consume, not to purchase outright and then maintain and ultimately go through an onerous upgrade process to take advantage of the next wave of functionality 2, 3, 4 years down the line. And that becomes a massively disruptive process. And then you're always on this treadmill of, we're chasing the upgrade. Are we going to upgrade? Now we're out of date, right? And it becomes a untenable and unsustainable situation, rather than the cloud where you've got sort of incremental updates. It's much more consumable. It's easier to digest, and you can just stay current in a much more meaningful and less disruptive way. We talked a lot about the FDA regulations guidelines. I invite you, if this is something that you are thinking strongly about, there is the Microsoft Trust Center and Security Center. It's actually a website that Microsoft publishes where they have all of their audits, SOC audits, ISO audits, all the certifications of the back end that you can then provide out to an auditor or for your own internal compliance team to say, hey, this infrastructure that we're tapping into as part of Microsoft Dynamics 365, as I mentioned at the top of the call, it's impossible to create cost effectively on your own. Here's what we're getting in addition to the efficiencies of the application. The back end pieces that we're getting really help drive a lot of the value and the benefit and the compliance as well. And then integration with contract manufacturers, with 3PLs, and you can even take this beyond, right, out to customers, vendors, whoever, but really allowing you to put your ERP succinctly at the center of a network, of an ecosystem that is open yet controlled, so that you can share data with the people that you need to automate the back and forth of transactions, get things out of email, get things out of manual triggers, and move it into, hey, if this is within a threshold, it moves here, and away we go. And automate as much of that sort of day-to-day noise as possible. And I think that's really the promise and the vision, and frankly, the reality of what Microsoft Dynamics 365 can bring. So I will pause there. Alexis, any questions that you see in the chat for us?
Hey there, Stefan. Thank you so much for that. We do actually have one question here on timeline. Approximately how long does it take to move to a cloud ERP system?
That's a great question, and I'll answer it this way. I think it's going to depend on the sophistication or the evolution where you are in your life cycle. So let's sort of look at it through the lens of pre-commercialization versus post. I think pre-commercialization, we're actually taking people live, in an agile, iterative way in 3 to 4 months on core best practice-based functionality. Now, if you are an existing global manufacturer and we've got multiple sites and multiple supply chain networks and things like that we need to consider, then you're probably going to be bumping up more towards that 9 to 12 month, maybe a little bit beyond, depending on your team's availability, things like that. But the good news is, in general, Microsoft Dynamics 365 is not going to be a 2 or 3 year endeavor like you might have heard horror stories about some of the legacy systems that are out there.
All right, great. It looks like that's the conclusion of our question portion here. If you have any other questions that may come up, you can contact us via email at us-marketing@columbusglobal.com. Thank you much, Stefan, for giving us a good overview of Cloud ERP for life sciences. That concludes our webinar today. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.